Winsome Losesome. People often ask me if I know the saga of the old bent man that roams the streets of our historical city, each as decrepit as the other, each retaining vestiges of the imposing figures they once had been. I am Singh was how he introduced himself, I am king was what he meant. Perhaps the best few words to describe him would be much admired despite it being light years away from the truth. That's because no matter which way you examined him, he had been much mired in the field of advertising for decades, and that's all that mattered to him. I am truly epitomized the front page soulless ad, stand alone, unarguable, persuasive, assertive. Any lesser being was considered no more than a 4-page pullout or feature, neither controlling nor intrinsically part of the mainstream, but merely a parasitic addenda sharing the same media vehicle. In his mind, he was second to none, invincible, irrefutably supreme and unparalleled. Unquestionably, not only was his word law, he also took vicarious pleasure in coming up with unpopular decisions and rulings in establishing them. He could retain usable information for years on someone without using it. Additionally, he had no qualms about maneuvering other people to achieve his objectives, to wit, he was an opportunist, not an impulsive but a calculated one. While on wit, he was rich and well endowed in that department. He could endear himself to the most suspecting and be a popular epicenter at any gathering with the greatest of ease. He could influence people to go out of their way to prove their loyalty, allegiance, and gratitude to him, however hesitantly, just for having touched their lives. A masterful manipulator, a tactical planner and adept executor, he was happiest and most secure in his opulent trappings both at home and away, surrounded by his familiar transparent sycophants and opaque critics. When the time came for him to seriously consider starting his own family, I.M. had planned his gambit many squares earlier. He had an industrialist friend RRM with a massive budget organized, people say, by the father-in-law, that I.M. did not initially pursue to enhance his social image. What the industrialist did not know was that the ad man was in on his gaining sexual favors from his plain Jane's wife's sister, who was fed up of RRM's flaccid advances in any case. The socialite ad man harbored no more delays, dropped anchor, distributed the ornate cards, and, using his newly found wife Kiran's influence, waltzed off with the account as a bonus. For a while, Kiran was the light of his life, a popular hostess and an able supporter of his schemes. Alas, she was able to bear him just one son Jojo, though one dare, says IK's overbearing personality, hoped to be born more. Over the years, his interest in Kiran waned, overtaken by his resolve to make Jojo an echo of his own personality. Not much was heard of Kiran thereafter, though one is sure she continued to lurk in IM's shadows. Perhaps she was relegated to the womb-to-tomb syndrome adopted by any vibrant society to anyone that does not contribute sizably to its activities. What misadventure it was for the ad man to realize that Jojo could never be as malleable and ductile, like mallards and ducks, as his heart desired. IM spared no funds or efforts to afford Jojo the best of education and exposure, but could not shake the romantic core off the ladder. Naturally endowed with good looks, Jojo was infinitely more comfortable with literature, poetry, art and music than IM's commercial world of punchlines, ad films, catchy jingles, and misleading statistics, more at home with the occasional pink champagne than a seasonal print campaign. Despite threatening strictures from his father, Jojo's passion honed in on being quite an accomplished lead guitarist who wrote his own songs, even more so when he organized, reminiscent of his father's skill, a young group of talented musicians to complete his quartet. Their aspirations to be a successful rock group continued to meet IM's stony disapproval, but there was scant little the father could do about it. Social pressure detracted him from outright disowning Jojo or evicting him from his house without further provocation. Jojo's soft exterior as a contrast to his father enjoyed a more acceptable public persona. Meanwhile, Jojo 4 music gained rapid popularity in the city, playing live at many leading watering holes and gaining commercial success that IM tried fervently to distance himself from. Unperturbed, Jojo soon inducted Nisha, an intelligent, attractive young dancer, as part of his music act. The young musician had known her family from earlier days. Nisha's mother began her secretarial career at IM's Ads Hop. Jojo and Nisha's combination on stage was so electric that they brought down the house, IMs included, wherever and whenever they performed. After this, there was no looking back for Jojo though as time had it, there was not too much to look ahead for either. The affinity between Jojo and Nisha cemented, became concrete. Sadly, IM viewed this constant albeit melodic display of union of minds and body on a daily basis as a veritable spurning of his superior values by his son. Unwittingly goaded to a fitting reaction, he publicly joshed Jojo to join him in a debate on the morality of latter-day art at the local country club, of which he was secretary. Equally fed up of the scathing asides, delivered directly at home every day, Jojo readily agreed. It's often said, in matters of the court, it's not the mover or the defendant but only the lawyers that benefit. Setting up this bout was predestined, therefore, to entertain society at large rather than settle any issues per se. An evening of interesting banter of great minds therefore ended up as a landmark battle that spawned only losers. IM opened the debate with describing Jojo's passions as wasteful pursuits encouraging wayward youth to more wayward ways. Jojo countered with accusing his father of befooling consumers and overcharging clients for years, gathering the wrong kind of notes. What's more, Jojo divulged instances of rip-offs architected by IM. Visibly embarrassed, the ad man became excessively personal, straying from the issue, bringing out details of his son's more laid-back lifestyle and lecherous skits of the guitarist's amorous tryst with Nisha. Inevitably, the atmosphere became explosive with Jojo crucifying IM's personal and commercial morals, and his shameless misuse and disuse of people. The crowd cheered silently in their heart of hearts, but the die had been cast. IM announced Jojo's expulsion from his house, the club, and resolved to have his contract stricken from whatever bars and restaurants under IM's influence. His ire enveloped Nisha, whose dancing license he vowed to revoke with the administration's collusion. With an illogical vendetta yet unslaked, the rumor spread like wildfire that the ad man may well have his son bumped off. He couldn't afford to have such a strident voice of dissension in circulation, even if it was a son. Another die was cast, Det wish won. Society remained mute in their disapproval, even though they had secretly admired the fearlessness with which Jojo had lampooned his father. It was unfortunate that many were slated to lose much. Nisha was no less resolute than Jojo. On hearing the rumor, she boldly quick-stepped to her beau's ad dad with as fearless a Det wish 2 alternative: kill me if you will, I love him still, but won't love him more, if you let him go, a Jojo 4 number. Nisha's mother took up the chorus with You Owe Me One from her halcyon days at the Adventure, and beseeched the boss she once had beached to spare the lass. She may well be his Winsome Losesome. Now IM was an astute man not wanting blood on his hands. He was more than familiar with most publications and their owners. Knowing the owner of Walled City News in the next town for being the perverse, and worse, martinet he was, IM made Nisha take a pledge never to contact Jojo or be seen dancing in exchange for a hellish life and employment under the WCN management. Meanwhile, Jojo 4 lost music contracts in the city, and considered migrating elsewhere. His pecuniary reserves dwindled. Gyrating Nisha was nowhere to be seen, located, dyeing his music to a deeper shade of blue. He often sought comfort in the company of his mother, herself a flickering flame, confused twixt the morals and moralis of her life. You some, lose some. Branding his father as Nisha's assassin, he voodoo-dolled the ad man, pricking him with needles of barbed lyrics at every chance. He can still be seen lovelorn at seedy bars, now reduced to a trio, bleary-eyed as a man denied, a single that never cut a single, a living slipped disc. Bet some, get some, kiss some, miss some. He lives in a seedy shack and feeds at seedy snacks, hoping to meet Nisha again. Det wish 3. And there's IM. Det wish 4. Now a bit bent and gnarled, too aware of his exposure in the war of words many years ago, but stiffened with ages of self-deception, ages of grandeur, some deserved, some not. A body reinforced with promises, but a mind deflowered, a fervor displayed, but an audience unswayed, a wife dismayed and later mislaid, and a son more bound with musical chords than familial chords, festooned with notes of wispy melody rather than crispy currency. An iron adventurer that went out to conquer and control what he could not control, an event some that ended up so bent some. Had he not tried to control destiny, destiny would not have controlled him. Burdened by the debt of a royal spouse for whom he scarcely cared, stooped by the debt of a dancer whose life he snared, smitten by a son he never spared, and weighed down by animosities he himself had reared, he continues a broken man, an adman so bent some.